G'day everyone and welcome to another edition of Crowcast Weekend Wrap. A fantastic weekend of football with my two favourite teams just failing to fall over the line by a combination of 150 points. Oh, couldn't have been a better weekend, and let's cry about it for a while, shall we? Good evening, Crows fans, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap, brought to you by Crowcast, of course. Very sad for a small percentage of the South Australian population, but for the rest of us, awesome. To join me in the gloating fest, I'm joined by Macca. How you go, Mac?
Same as you, mate, in a very good mindset after a very good weekend.
And Nikki, how you going, Nick?
I'm going very well. I got snowed on today.
You got...
There was actual snow at Mount Lofty today. It lasted for about 10 seconds, but there was actual snow.
So let me just get this right, straight off the bat. Last weekend you came on and you said you got your first jab. And this weekend you got snowed on.
Yep.
You can't get a better footy review than that, mate.
But that's it. I'm done. I've got nothing left.
We all know where your minds are.
Oh my godfather, what the hell, Nikki? You can't do that to me. That's probably what you said. Anyway, Macca, was your weekend as eventful as that?
Oh, nothing to match that one.
No,
no, mate. Actually, Mrs. Mac is not too well, so I've actually had to play housewife, and Jesus, I feel sorry for them.
Yeah, well, I don't feel sorry for Geelong or Port, and it was fantastic to watch the Cats get absolutely mauled by the Demons on Friday night, but that paled into insignificance with the absolute choke that was on display at the Adelaide Oval in front of the passionate Port Power supporters. An absolute disgrace to that football club, and wow, how are they going to bounce back from that? And I hope that Jordan Dawson was watching that game and thinking, yeah, maybe the Crows are a better deal.
Well, in all logic, I think we're more likely to win a flag sooner than Port Adelaide, because this crew are never going to win it. As you said, it was the ultimate choke. They had everything going their way running up to this particular match. The Bulldogs
had a better run.
Yep, and the Bulldogs had everything wrong going up to this run, and yet they absolutely blistered them, make them look like a bundle of shit, and they were. They were hopeless. And we'll go through some specific players afterwards. But when you've got certain players in your side like they have, they will never, ever win a flag, because they'll let you down every time when it's crunch time. And also, when they keep this coach, Kenny, I really, really like him as a man. I think he's a great bloke, but he will never, ever win a flag. Never.
Yeah, and that was going to be my point more once you started talking about the players. For me, the ultimate buck stops with Ken, and we've seen it before. He does not cope well in the final. It really comes that pressure, and he has to step outside of his own game plan. He just can't do it. And you contrast that with Beveridge and what he did coaching wise to get his players to play that team game, which is a little bit different from how they normally play. Completely took out Alia, and Port just had no idea how to no longer get that run from half back, which allows them to get that ball nice and quick actually into their forward line. They just couldn't get into gear at all.
Right. One plan, Kenny. That's all he's got.
And that's why I was absolutely so happy when they re-signed him again, because whilst he can get them doing well during the season, we've seen him fall to pieces when he comes up against decent, hardened finals coaches.
Well, let's just calm the farm. I know that we want to get stuck in, but let's just stick to format, you two.
Look, Nicky and I are sticklers for that.
Yeah, you're right on it. All right, look, thanks to everyone who's joined us on Discord and also on YouTube, and maybe one or two on Twitch as well. Don't forget, if you want to have your say and have a bit of a laugh tonight, because it is the season to be jolly. Stick your hand up and we'll get you on the chat. And don't forget, if you want to support us, go to patreon.com/AFL Crowcast. All support appreciated. Now, you two, let's just keep it nice and straight, and we'll talk about the Melbourne Cats game first, shall we?
Let's do that then.
All right. Yeah, there we go. Right, so it was Melbourne 19-11, 125 by 83 points, if you don't mind, over the very old, very slow Geelong Cats, 6-6-42. It really was an absolute pantsing by Melbourne.
It was, Fiend, and I think you started it pretty well by throwing in the age factor as well, because they had, I'm not really sure how many it was, something like about 11 or 12 players on the wrong side of 30. They keep bringing them in, players from other clubs.
Yeah.
They keep playing the same stupid game plan, which is never going to win a premiership. It just isn't. It's because when you win a flag, you do that by getting down and getting dirty. And that's why the Bulldogs have been so successful in the finals. They were travelling very ordinary. Remember that? I think it was against Essendon when it turned wet. And all of a sudden it enabled them to play their game plan, which is really just getting down and getting dirty and getting the ball out with good handball, etc. And whereas the Geelong's game plan, this idea of keeping it off and just kicking backwards and forwards till you find an opening, that doesn't happen a lot in finals. It just doesn't happen a lot. And yet Chris Scott, he's another Kenny, really. He just keeps presenting the same game plan that failed last time. And then he thinks, well, I'll go out and recruit another one or two from another club and we'll get there. But you won't, because the game plan's shit. It just isn't going to win a flag.
Well, it's shit when your midfield can't generate enough ball, and the problem that Geelong had was they just couldn't get first use. They were absolutely pantsed around contested ball. They couldn't get any drive off half back, and their scoring options dried up. And Gary Rowan had his usual disappearing trick, and they had no answer for Max Gawn. Melbourne had that flexibility of two quality rucks, and whoever says that ruckmen aren't valuable, well, good ruckmen are very, very valuable, and Melbourne showed that by the fact that they could have that young lad rucking, and they could switch Gawn forward and back when he wasn't rucking. He did well defensively, but by God, for a ruckman to kick 6 goals in a preliminary final, don't tell me that good ruckmen aren't valuable.
Yeah,
that was insane. And it was just kind of interesting, because normally what we've seen is we get one blowout for a prelim final, but the fact that we got two, and you absolutely saw the way, you're spot on, the coaching was so much better. And for Geelong, it was purely and simply that they rely on that game plan for Cardinia Park, and they were put on the wrong oval where they really get found out. They can't spread.
I think we were talking last week. It might have been on Tuesday night actually, and Pete and I were talking about who had advantages, etc., with the venue. And one of the things I think Pete and I agreed on was the fact that Geelong were disadvantaged, or Melbourne were advantaged by the fact that Optus Stadium is very similar in configuration to the MCG. They didn't have to change their style much at all. Whereas Geelong, of course, used to playing on that bloody runway of an oval, and they get done by width all the time. They get spread apart too much, and as they've gotten older, they're not as able to cover ground defensively sufficiently, and there's so many gaps opening up for Melbourne, and they just took every opportunity. They had some really good contributors, but it was really a team effort by Melbourne and a very insipid effort by Geelong. They'd be bitterly disappointed by that at Geelong.
Yeah, just on that oval thing, my understanding is that Optus Oval has got identical dimensions to the MCG.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that factor that Nicky raised is a relevant factor, but it still doesn't excuse the insipid performance. There were too many players for Geelong that just don't get hard-balled. I mean, for example, much as I don't like Dangerfield, at least he does try, although he pretends to die every so often when he gets hit. Selwood, he's as tough as, and they've probably got a couple of others, but, you mentioned Gary Ryan. One bloody position for the game. And
someone put
he's
up
a barometer, isn't he?
Someone put up a stat. In the 6 finals that Rowan's played that Geelong have lost, he's gathered a total of 26 possessions. A total.
He's a barometer for their losses, isn't he?
Unbelievable.
And it's unbelievable they keep picketing. And I know that it might work fine in home and away games to have the 3-pronged attack, but no, he just doesn't do any damage. And it was interesting. I looked at the positions that Petrarca, Oliver, and Viney had between them. Massive. And then you throw in Gawn, who's allegedly there as a ruckman, and he's kicked 5 or 6 goals, and he's had 19 possessions and 33 hit-outs. And then young Jackson relieves him, and young Jackson, who everybody thought, everybody was surprised when he was taken as early as he was, same as they were with Pickett. They're a pretty shrewd club because they've got 2 very good young players there, and they've recruited very well. May and the rebel that left us, bloody
Lever,
yeah. Well, they don't really have many weaknesses. If you're ever going to get them, it's going to be up forward. But that's why they use young Max. Young Max. They use Max up there a lot now, and also Jackson's pretty handy man there, and Pickett's pretty handy man there.
Well,
they don't have a star forward on, but it's good.
You made an omission, because I think one of the underrated picks. And I said this at the beginning of the year, I couldn't understand why North Melbourne got rid of Brown.
Good point again, in fact.
And, he's come good at the right time of the year for them. He kicks straight, he can take a mark, and he's good on the lead. And, yes, he hasn't got the star power of some of the other forwards in the competition, but he was a good pickup for them. He provides them with the target, and it allows the small players to get around him, and he did very well, played very well, particularly early when the game was there to be won.
Yeah, they've got a very good structure overall. And
it doesn't hurt when you got a couple of balls in the midfield either. Let's go through some team stats, shall we? Disposals, 374 to 341 in Melbourne's favour. Very much more kicking than handball. Geelong forced a handball a bit because they just couldn't really break through Melbourne's frontal pressure, really. Disposal efficiency was quite similar. But have a look at this. Geelong only had 11 shots for goal from 42 inside 50s. That's insane. Melbourne 31 shots from 55 inside 50, so they did get the ball inside 50 more, but by the same token, Geelong just had no firepower up forward when they did get the ball in, and their forward 50 entries were pretty random and pretty messy, really.
I was going to make that point. They're rather pro-like when we often criticise those shallow entries that don't quite make it to the 50 or around the 50-metre mark, and they've got a very good structure down back. They have Melbourne. May, as often, 40, 50 metres back on his own. And it was interesting that when he went off Lever, went back to that same position. So It's a structure, and it works very, very well for them. And on top of that, as I said, most of Geelong's entries were pretty shallow, and it gave them every opportunity. Sometimes when they actually punched the ball from the pack, it ended up right in the centre of the ground. So you can be fooled by those number of entries thing.
Yes, definitely. Hit outs 46 to 43 in Melbourne's favour. Clearances Geelong's way 41 to 45, but again, more about quality than quantity in that respect, particularly centre clearances where Geelong 16 to 11, but I reckon all of Melbourne's 11 centre clearances just about ended up in a score. Round stoppage was pretty similar, 30 to 29. But here's where the game was won. Contested possessions, Geelong 130, Melbourne 160. Melbourne were just harder at it. They were able to win so much 50-50 ground ball, and they used it far better, 252 turnovers to 68 in Melbourne's favour. Marks, again, 88 to 57. Aerial dominance there. Marks inside 50. Look at that stat, 16 to 5 in Melbourne's favour. Contested marks 13 to 8. Intercept 68 to 52. So Geelong kept putting it up in the air and Melbourne kept marking it.
Yep, and the ones they didn't mark, they just punched away. So, but when will Geelong face the fact that this group is not going to win a flag? Do they just keep a... I wouldn't mind betting they'll just try and recruit another couple this year and have another go. But, they won't win one.
I heard Selwood talking about the fact that they should go again. It's just ridiculous. 11 players over 30, if you don't mind. Easily the oldest team ever to make a preliminary final in AFL history. And it was plain as the nose on your face that those blokes, when they're all right in the regular season, but you ratchet it up a few gears in finals, and they didn't have another gear. Selwood looks like he's just about gone and should retire. And Dangerfield looks heavy to me. He looks hampered. He doesn't look as free. Yeah. And I just wonder whether the hits are starting to catch up with Patrick Dangerfield a bit. But it's second-tier players that fell right away. Blokes like Guthrie and that, and we didn't see Menangola. We didn't see Radigalia. We didn't see much of Zach Tui really. Most of their second string workhorses just were nowhere to be found, and they had nothing in the end.
Well, they got what they deserved, in my opinion. They stuck with this coach. They stuck with this game plan. As I said, they just keep just tweaking the people inside it by pinching players from other clubs. But at the end of the day, they're not going to win a flag. Not with this coach. I'll make the same comment about him as I do about Kenny. But opposite to Kenny, I don't regard Chris Scott as a nice guy. I do regard Kenny as a nice guy.
So sorry, go Nick.
I was going to say, the thing is with Scott as well, is that he finds every single excuse in the book for why they didn't perform well.
Oh yeah.
And he 100%. cannot actually look at, as we've just explained, he has exceedingly selfish players in Selwood, etc. That if they were properly playing a team game and they knew and they could actually look and see what was going on, and that the fact that they are the ones holding that team back with their excess salaries, and the fact that the game has gone past them. They are the ones who should be stepping aside for the team, but they can't do that.
No. Here's an interesting scenario for you, because how long's Hinkley got left in his contract? 2 years?
2 years.
How long's Chris Scott got left in his contract?
Yeah, I think he's got 2 as well.
Yeah. So I reckon Hinkley being a Geelong boy, I reckon Chris Scott goes to Carlton to coach, Kenny Hinkley goes to Geelong to coach, and Rossi Lyon goes and coaches Port.
3 losing teams there.
Well, I wouldn't mind betting that there's a bit of movement on Chris Scott.
You reckon?
Yep.
Then there needs to be.
Oh, there should be, but they don't seem to be interested in moving him on.
Yeah. How long has it been now? 10 years?
Yes. It was 11 years ago, I think they won the flag. I think it was that.
Won a flag with Bombers' game plan, and haven't done anything since. Oh, that's wrong. They have done things, but they haven't been able to crack another flag. And I wouldn't mind betting there's a bit of movement. Same with Hinkley. You would think that the writing is on the wall now for Ken Hinkley, and I know Port aren't really in a position to move on a coach and pay out a two years of a contract. But there would be some boardroom rumblings, I reckon, about Kenny Hinkley after that effort. I mean, you guys are right, and Pete said it as well on Tuesday night's show. There's not one team that has had a bigger red carpet ride through the finals than Port Adelaide, and we'll get to them in a sec. And for all their advantages, that they didn't just lose, Mac. They didn't just lose; they got flogged. And I reckon there'll be some movement. Yeah. Anyway, let's stick to this game. Let's look at some players. And Jack Viney was an excellent game, I thought, and a real bonus for Melbourne. A real bonus for Melbourne that Viney is up and about at this time of the year, because he's kind of gone a bit more under the radar with Petrarca and Oliver, really taking the reins there. But he is so important for them. 16 contested possessions, 34 disposals, 17 kicks, 17 handballs. Really, in my opinion, was one of the drivers of that victory. Petrarca was excellent, hit the scoreboard as well, 32 touches with 14 contested possessions. Oliver, by his standards, I felt was a little bit quiet. Still had 27 touches, 15 contested possessions, but it was really, in my opinion, it was Viney and Petrarca that really drove that midfield engine this week. Salem was also very good with 29 touches, 23 kicks, 6 handballs and 19 uncontested possessions. So he really got it on the outside for them, and he was really playing that link role through transition for them quite well.
He's got a beautiful left foot on him too.
Yes, very much so. The only midfielder to figure in the top half a dozen stats winners for Geelong was P. Dangerfield, had 30 touches, 19 and 11. Didn't seem to be particularly damaging though, only went at 57% disposal efficiency, which has always been Patrick's problem. And he, to his credit, he battled on, and I felt like he was playing a bit of a lone hand. Isaac Smith had a lot of nothing possessions. Guthrie was ineffective. Selwood with 24 touches was ineffective. Mitch Duncan with 23 was ineffective. So a lot of their players, the possessions they did get weren't damaging. They weren't able to make themselves difficult to play against at all. They were very reactive. Max Gawn with 19 touches, as you mentioned. Macca and just a lazy 5 goals. Some really good performances and some really good cameos. Harms, Neil Bullen, those sort of blokes just chipped in when they needed to.
Good point.
And played good minutes when they needed to. And you didn't get a lot of that. Sean Higgins, surely that's the end for Sean Higgins, I would have thought. You've got to start asking questions about blokes like Lockie Henderson, Gary Rowan, as we mentioned before. There's a lot about that list. They're really in the same position that the Crows were a couple of years ago, and whilst they've been more successful in terms of progress through the season, through the finals, they've come up with the same amount of premierships over that time that we have. A big fat zero.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's what it comes down to. It's one and the rest. So they're going to have to go through it. If they're serious, they're going to have to go through the same transition to a new group as what we're currently doing.
Well, do you think they will, though, Fane?
Oh, well, I mean, who knows? Interesting lead now that they've had a bit of a change in the guard. They've got Stephen Hocking going back there and they've got a new CEO. There might be some new voices and new opinions there. So that might instigate a bit of change, Macca, down there. But to me, it's always it seems to me that it's been a bit of a player-driven club over the last 4 or 5 years, and I reckon it'll be a measure of the club to see whether they can make some hard decisions, as we've had to do, and move some of those senior players on.
Excellent point you made there. You do get the impression that it's a player-driven club, that they virtually do their thing. They know their game plan that the coach wants them to play, and then they just do their own thing out there with very little consultation. That's what it appears like, and that they put themselves almost above the team at times, I think, anyhow. And I just think that they probably need a good shake-up, and the change in management might do that. But they've always been pretty satisfied with what they've achieved, even though they haven't won anything in all that period of time.
Very arrogant, Mac. You're right.
Yeah, we're very, very critical of our team, and if we were in their position, but we'd be really bagging them by now. But they seem to be happy that Geelong are doing very, very well. They're up there all the time. But as you said quite rightly, there's only one position which really counts at the end of the season, and that's position 1.
That's right.
After that, you might as well be number 18 and get the first draft pick, because there's no glory in any of the other positions at all.
Nope. Correct. Okay, absolutely correct. Look, I'd like someone to point out to me what it is that Chris Scott has added to that team or that club that you could truly call trademark Chris Scott. There's no game plan that I can see that you could say, oh yeah, that's Chris Scott's game plan. He's just been running the same playbook that they've always been running. They've played the same way that they've always played. They keep topping up to try and go again and all the rest of it. But what has Chris Scott actually added to that group? Can anyone tell me?
Well, there's 2 comments in the chat which are very good. One says Scott has added his ego. The other one says Jenkins. They're pretty sharp out there in the chat.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is, though, if you actually look at what he's done with adding more of those older players that were at other clubs, etc., that's actually not his own thing. That's something Clarkson did at Hawthorn. But what Clarkson did was he didn't take those players who were actually quite highly paid. So Rowan and Cameron, etc. A lot of the players that he's targeted were ones that were already kind of considered upper echelon in their own clubs. Whereas what Clarkson did was to take players that were slightly on the outer, etc., whatever, but he could see the potential and he knew how to bring that out. And that's the problem with Chris Scott. You're spot on, Fane, is that there is no Chris Scott DNA.
No, exactly right, Nick.
Because he can't coach.
Good terminology there. There's no Chris Scott DNA. 100% right. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Geelong over the next 12 months because, for whatever reason, they're also a town that heavily invests in their football club. There's a bit of a socio-economic depression in the Geelong area, which is unfortunate. And so they do get a lot of their, their vibe and all the rest of it from the success of the Geelong Footy Club. And that's fantastic. But a football club can't just continue to try and, be there or thereabouts and just carry so many aging stars. And those players have given that club fantastic service over the years, but the time's come. And if they don't have the nuts to pull the trigger, they'll be also rants because they won't be able to recover from that. That was a comprehensive flogging by a team that is on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of the trajectory of their side.
Look, it takes courage to say we we got pretty close, but not close enough. And then in the end, we got flogged. And it does take courage to make that decision to pull your team apart and get rid of the old timers and start building in new players and building a new team with a new game plan, etc., and probably a new coach. But it takes a lot of balls for a club to make that decision. And this Geelong hasn't done it. And I think one of the reasons that you quoted there, Fiend, is the fact that it's interlinked with the Geelong town. And
a little bit.
And while they keep winning down, and winning on their little garbage dump down there, which they call their own.
No, let's not be derogatory. They're hurting down there. They're hurting down there at the moment.
Yeah, I've heard them more. But then while they win plenty of games down there, it makes the locals happy. It does, and I think they've been sort of happy with doing that too. And now to strip it bare and start again, that's not going to. Then they start losing down there. That's not going to make the locals happy. So it will, because they're in a peculiar position because of that. The locality is very important, and I think it's going to take a lot of balls to do it, but they do have to do it.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, I think just on that point, I think a couple of years ago there was a lot more intertwining, but some of those people have since left the club. I think they still have some influence, but not as much. But yeah, there's definitely some overlap still going on about that. You are right, Macca, that it's very linked with the town, and they must be successful, and that's their problem.
But that's why I think that Hocking and I forget the name of the new CEO are going to be the impetus for a little bit of change. We've got Brian Cook leaving, probably going to take over at Carlton, I'd imagine, which is why I reckon Chris Scott might end up at Carlton. So we'll see. But anyway, who gives a shit? As J-Mac rightly points out in the chat, does anyone care? No. But I think we've given them enough time. Let's move on to the main event this evening.
The comedy hour.
Let me just clear my throat while I read the score. Western Bulldogs, 17 goals, 14, 1-1-6, defeated the Port Adelaide Power, 6 goals, 9-45, a flattering margin in the end of Port of 71 points. Go Dogs.
It was kind of funny rewatching the game today, or watching it for the first time, because I knew the score, I knew the result, and I was told, they were never in the game, etc. There were passages though that they were, but it was purely and simply a lot of that pressure that got to them. They couldn't get that drive and run off the half back line with any fluency. And there were some really basic skill errors that were going on, like absolute monties of missing targets and things like that. That I think kind of came into it. So I do wonder a little bit whether they'll think themselves just like a little bit better when they look back at the tape. But seriously, overall, you're right. It was like it was on Friday night. It was a comprehensive smashing. There needs to be some really serious questions asked, particularly of players and of the coaching staff. Is Vossi once again concentrating on other things when he should be concentrating on finals? But it was also quite delightful for most of us.
Nikki, Port Adelaide shat themselves. They shat themselves.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as the Bulldogs, it was evident that the Bulldogs were up and about. Port didn't know, their game plan fell completely apart. If you have a look at that game again, you'll see how many times there were multiple Bulldogs players in aerial contests. They completely blanketed Aliir. They made sure that there was always a couple going up against Aliir as the ball was coming in. And at ground level, the amount of times that the Bulldogs outnumbered Port 2 or 3 to 1 was absolutely unbelievable. Port were nowhere. They were making silly mistakes. They weren't running to position. They were overrunning balls. They were hesitant. They and all things that were signs of a playing group that had spent all their energy in nervous energy pre-game. They couldn't handle the hype, they couldn't handle the expectation, they couldn't handle the occasion, and they got absolutely flogged by a team that I still maintain has tapered over the last 2 or 3 weeks of the regular season. I wouldn't mind betting that they did a bit of a Neil Craig train hard for a month before the finals, because they were running on top of the ground. They look fit, they look firing, they look hard, and they've got some weapons, the Western Bulldogs.
Actually, it's a very good point you raised there again, Pete. You're on fire tonight. That point about the fact that they lost their last 3 minor round games, and that used to be a trademark of Neil Craig, that he would actually, in those last few minor round games, just train his players into the ground so that they really had the stamina to keep going and going for
it won us our first game. It won us our first flag, Macca. That won us our first flag. I've had it straight from the horse's mouth. No, it wasn't Blighty. It was Neil Craig. Neil Craig was our fitness coach.
He was.
It was Neil Craig that did it. He came from the Sports Institute. Remember when he was running the cycling program there with Charlie Welsh?
Yes.
And I've heard it straight from Darren Jarman's mouth that Neil Craig was one of the biggest reasons why we won in '97, because he flogged them for the last month of the season.
Well, the interesting thing in the Port's case is that not only did Kenny, I just think, as you said, they built up their expectations, but not so much the fact that the media did, they did. Koshy kept whacking away on a national basis, and Kenny kept whacking away how good they were, and we've got enough to win a flag and all this sort of crap. Look, win the games at first, and then tell us about it after the game. And as you said, they in their own minds, they had won this bloody game before they started. And once they ran onto the ground, they were up against a team who are a hard-at-it team. And it was an interesting thing, I think it was the first quarter that I heard this, that the ground ball gets were 34-13 in the first quarter.
It was horrific. The differentials in clearances and contested possession and all the rest of it would have horrified Port Adelaide.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is Phil Walsh, who I think could have been our best coach ever if things had been not the way they were. That was his big thing. It was about ground ball gets. That you win games through ground ball gets, and 34-13 in the first quarter was probably a fair reflection of how that first quarter went. So I think Phil Walsh was rolling the money with that particular point. So the midfield of the Bulldogs, they are very good at ground level at flicking the ball out and getting there. I thought McRae was outstanding with his game, and he's been outstanding right through the finals so far. The Bont did a reasonable contribution, and a young Smith, he gave a lot of the running power. Their midfielder just embarrassed Port Adelaide.
You forgot one, Mac, because I reckon Tom Liberatore is very underrated in that midfield.
Oh yeah, that's an omission. I should have mentioned probably him first, because he gets them out the centre first.
Like that very first Macca, that very first centre clearance was him through and through, which got their tails up of how easily they were able to get it out and keep it down the forward line, get that first goal, straight away. And as somebody else pointed out, one of the Bulldogs players on the radio today actually used the motivation that they were not allowed to train on the ground. So I could see that they were just that little hint of anger of, we're going to show you. And that just came through the way they played in that first quarter and just broke them apart.
Yeah, we thank the Premier for that, the Port Adelaide player, Port Adelaide supporter. I know what the health people say, but common sense says that the Premier is the person that should be making the decisions, and he managed to talk the crowd numbers up against Spurrier's wishes, and he was the one, I think, that should have overridden and said that they could train, because common sense said they should have. But that backfired on them.
Spurrier must have been in the Port Adelaide change rooms before the game, because they certainly kept a social distance. They did not get near it, and they didn't look like they wanted to get near it.
Do not touch that ball.
They look. You'd have to be incredibly disappointed as a Power supporter if the Crows were in that position and they threw up that sort of an effort, which you could say they probably did in the second half of their last grand final. But you know, this on their home deck. They've had a dream run. They haven't had to travel. Western Bulldogs have travelled the length and breadth of the country. Western Bulldogs beat Brisbane with no preparation. They've now beaten Port with no preparation. They'll go to Optus Stadium and also have very little preparation on that ground as well. But if there's one coach in the competition who can build an us versus them mentality, it's Luke Beveridge. And you saw him after the game when he was crapping on about commentators underrating certain players. I think it was talking about Adam Treloar. Luke Beveridge is fantastic at building a wall around his team, making it us against them. We're the downtrodden, we're the hard done by. We'll show them. There's not a better coach in the competition to get a team up for that with that sort of attitude.
He's used that one for years, I think. And as you said, no coach uses it better than him, because he has such a vicious look on his face when he says it too.
Yep. And they're all talking about it on the Sunday footy shows this morning as if it was, a bit out of place. Luke Beveridge doesn't give a shit. All he's doing is talking to his team. And he's talking to Adam Treloar in that moment to give him a G up and go, yeah, you played well done for bouncing back. He will get that team up, and it'll be that mentality. And I tell you, the thing that really works for the Western Bulldogs is the fact that they have this week's break to get a couple of players back, to get a little bit of freshness back. And I reckon 2 weeks for a team that is the hunted, which I would think is Melbourne, starting as favourites. 2 weeks to sit on the fact that they are the favourites for a grand final, for a premiership for the first time in 496 years for their club. That's a lot of time, and it's going to be, without getting ahead of the game here off format, hard work for the Melbourne support staff, coaching staff, to stop their players from spending their tickets before a ball's bounced.
Yeah, look, I think that the Bulldogs, by winning it as they have against all the odds, would be going. They'll have to now fly to Perth, and they'll have to go to quarantine again and go through various things. But those type of things seem to act as a spur to this particular team. And as you say, Luke Beveridge is he is the ultimate coach at making that disadvantages become an advantage to drive his team on. On the other hand, though, of course, Melbourne's had a had the perfect run. The only question with Melbourne is, have they played enough games in the time? That's all.
Yes. All right. Let's have a look at some stats, shall we? All right. Disposals pretty even. 369, 367. Bullies Handball Club was on show. 160 handballs to 132. Inside 50, surprisingly lopsided in the Bulldogs' favour, 60 to 48. Efficiency inside 50 again, 31 shots from 60 inside 50s for the Bulldogs, 21 shots from 48 for the Power. They missed a few they shouldn't have. Hit outs heavily in Port's favour, 49 to 24. And yet clearances 35 to 41 in Western Bulldogs' favour. Centre clearances about the same, but around stoppage they got ahead of themselves. But again, contested possession, Macca. A plus 30 result for the Western Bulldogs, almost identical to the previous game. Yep. Port had a lot more of the ball on the outside, but they just couldn't do anything with it. The Bulldogs' pressure was pretty good, and they held up across halfback very well, Western Bulldogs. Tackles, Port far more tackles, 72 to 58. But where's the marking? I went past it. Port 85 to 78 marks, but inside 50, 9 to 14. start to ask some questions of Charlie, although he didn't do too badly. Mitch Georgiadis was well held, I thought. Todd Marshall had a little spurt.
Georgiadis didn't play.
I thought he did.
No, Georgiadis didn't come up.
Oh, who was the other? Oh, no. Sorry, they had what's his name? Go forward a bit. What's the ruckman's name?
Laddams.
That's right. Yeah, sorry, my mistake. Intercepts 89 to 75 in Bulldogs' favour, and that's been the opposite way for Port Adelaide for the last 2 months, with Aliir being the intercept king. But as I mentioned, they always made sure they had a spare player going up against Aliir. So there was Aliir's direct opponent was always going up with him, but they always had another one going up. And Port did nothing to protect Aliir in those contests. They just let him go up, and he just kept getting hammered by blokes coming in from the side, and as a consequence, he was pretty ineffective.
With the way that they were playing him, though, you actually have to have two very good tall forwards in order for it to work the way it was, because they were making sure that they were in front. Because a lot of the time where we've seen him, he manages to get in front and he can then dictate it. But because of the way that they were being able to do that and their size, he couldn't get around them, etc. So you have to have two very good tall forwards in order for that to work. And also the way they were grappling, I did think a couple of times he possibly could have got frees because there were a bit of holding, etc. going on. But you're right, it was executed beautifully to that game plan, and they always then had somebody down on the ground ready to get that ball.
Yeah, just one adjustment to what you said, Nikki, in the sense that they made sure that their forward stayed in pairs near him, and one standing in front of him and the other one standing in front of the other one, the other Port player. So it was a situation that was almost blocking him. It wasn't so much holding him; it was more like almost like blocking him. And there were some situations where some umpires might have played a free to Aliir, but it was done very, very well. It's obviously a pre-game plan as well, because, and as you said, they expected the ball most of the time to come to ground, and there were little guys just running past for it. So again, good planning by Luke Beveridge. Again, adjusting his game plan for the situation. Whereas dear old Kenny, we just trot him out and do the same old thing.
Yeah, Inquisitor makes a really good point on the chat. One team went in with a plan, the other team expected to play the same way. That's exactly how it panned out. Port Adelaide expected to be able to implement the same game plan they've been trotting out all season, and expect it to work again. They had no plan to get Aliir free, so they allowed the Bulldogs to make him accountable and to make him lessen his impact. But again, you're talking about a midfield. Whilst Port are quite young in some respects, they played a lot of the game with Trav Boak and Robbie Gray running through the midfield. And again, like Trav Boak's had a really good season. Robbie Gray's coming back from injury. Why did they start Robbie Gray in the midfield?
Did not understand that one little bit. I mean, Robbie Gray's on his last legs. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he's been a champion player and he's a very clever player, but his days in the midfield, they're gone because he hasn't got enough legs for it. And right. when he started in the midfield, I thought to myself, what the?
Well, it just seemed like an unnecessary... It was almost like Ken didn't have faith in the midfielders that had got him to the preliminary final in the first place. And that would have been a bit shattering for those lads who've been running through there, that all of a sudden was starting on the bench.
Yeah, and well, Kenny, as I say, I don't think he's the smartest of guys, and when it comes to coaching, and he played the same game plan he normally plays with just one or two little tweaks, like as we say, with with Robbie Gray, getting close to being one of the oldest players with the tightest legs and having had a lot of injuries in the middle, right from the word go, which didn't make any sense to me at all.
No, it was very odd. It was odd, and it's a Ken Hinkley special. Let's have a look at some individuals. Ollie Wines, I thought, played really well. 38 touches, 15 kicks, 23 handballs, 16 contested possessions. Was probably a standout for Port Adelaide. Jackson McRae, 36 touches with 14 and 23 contested possessions. Riley Bonner, Travis Boak tried hard. Bailey Dale, Smith, Trelaw, Daniel, they're all in amongst it with not very even numbers. Bailey Smith to kick 4 goals from midfield was probably their standout midfielder, in terms of getting results. Although I did think that Liberatore was very important for them, even though he only got the 19 touches.
Yeah, no, he started but he did start it all, didn't he? I mean,
I thought so.
That 5-minute burst before Drew came onto the ground, brilliant coaching by Kenny. He just kept setting him up out the midfield, and the ball's just going forward and going through for goals. And I think there was 4 goal on the board before he came on, Drew?
Yeah.
No, and again, well, you say it so many times, but Kenny can't coach.
Oh dear. Look, there's a lot of players were down. Carl Amon only had the 21 touches, was pretty much ineffective. Connor Rosey looked a bit overawed in my opinion, didn't want to get his hands dirty too much, only the 18 disposals, but critically for Rosey, only 7 kicks for the match, and it's by foot that he can be damaging. Zach Butters.
About Rosey. Just to make a comment about Rosey. I thought he was going to be a star, and he really has got all the attributes to be a star. But this year, I really have been disappointed in the way he's played overall. He plays for free kicks, he does dives, and he tries to do fancy tricks all the time. And in other words, he's not doing the hard stuff that he used to do when he first started playing. And I had him right on a pedestal. And if he wants to get to where he can be or where he should be, he's going to have to really change his game. And I thought it really showed up in this grand final thing. I mean, he as somebody said, like he pulled out, he piked. There's so many things he did wrong in this particular game, and it's a player that could be a champion in my opinion, but he looked very ordinary.
He really didn't like the fact that they closed down the space on him. And normally he can do his little sidestep, but he's coming up against the Bulldogs players. And I did say last week that the one weakness for the Bulldogs is their defence. But the way that they were playing and forcing that ball out wide, and they've got some good players that know how to do the sidesteps themselves. So you try to do it against them, they know how to counter it. So he just couldn't get the space that he normally can.
Yeah. Bobby Brady makes a really good point in the chat. I don't reckon the young kids have come back from injury terribly well. Butters in particular, I don't think has come back terribly well from injury. He might probably still be carrying something. Connor Rosey, way too early to write him off because he's got a ton of ability.
Not writing him off.
But the kid believes his own bullshit, and I think he's had his tyres pumped up pretty hard by those around him at Port Adelaide, and it needs a senior person at Port Adelaide to bring him back down to earth and remind him that it's hard work gets you a flag, not the razzle dazzle, not the bloody, the nice goals and the nice marks and all the rest. It's hard work that gets you a flag, and no better lesson for a young group like Rosie, Dersma, Butters, those kids, than to watch the way the Bulldogs went about it, because that was all about hard work. They just ran and ran and ran and ran and ran.
Well, and that's the interesting thing is if you went through the Bulldogs players, and I asked you to name 3 bad players, and I think you couldn't do it.
Mm. No,
Yeah.
you know, even like a bloke like Zane Cordy still played his role. Stephen Martin, I think he's still undefeated in games played for Western
Yep.
Bulldogs. Shaki played a very good role up forward, a very team-oriented role up forward, and chipped in. Could have had 4 goals, Shaki, but kicked 1-3. But was all part of, very instrumental in the way their forward setup worked. Johansson was good, made sure that they didn't lose too much with the loss of Cody Waitman. And I felt, even though only the 13 touches, he hit the scoreboard, which is what he needed to do. So they didn't lose anything or too much from Cody Waitman being out. English, another one that played a very team-oriented role up forward and was instrumental in the way they structured up there and gave Norton a bit of license to run and jump at the ball. So very good team game, a very good team game. And as we've been saying for the last hour or so, Port have got some soul searching to do. They need to understand what went wrong. And in my opinion, what went wrong was partly in the coach's box and partly in the heads of a lot of them.
Yeah. One thing you said at the beginning of the cast that you were the only one to pick Port, and you were. And I'm kicking myself because of the fact that I forgot about Motlop playing for Port Adelaide. And
Did he play?
I'm telling you serious. Every team that's got Motlop, you take it when Geelong days, they failed with Motlop in them. And since he's come to Port, they fail with Motlop in him. He is the most useless big game player I have ever seen. You can guarantee he will let you down. He's the equivalent of Gary Rowan.
Well, how's this for a trifecta?
He'll do. I was going to say he plays a big game during the season.
How's this for a trifecta? Power Pepper, Fantasia, and Motlop, each with 6 touches. The 3 of them kicked a collective 1 point for the game, and the 3 of them had collectively 6 contested possessions for the game. That's what I mean about fringe players not standing up. You're absolutely right with Motlop, Mako, but for all the fanfare about Fantasia, and he might have been carrying an injury, who knows, but Power Pepper is another one for all the fanfare about Power Pepper. Power Pepper should be on the trade table for mine. I think, I know he's a bit of a heart and soul player, but he's the type of player they need to move on. He's no value to them whatsoever.
Well, Kane Corn thinks he might be the next Dustin Martin.
Kane Corns is an idiot.
Oh, he keeps proving it all the time. Look, I think that you're quite right. I don't think he adds very much to their team. They're in an interesting situation too. The window was wide open for them technically this year. It may still be open for them next year, but it wouldn't be after that because they've got quite a few players that are very, 30 pluses, and they don't get better. They just slow down a bit.
Yeah. Yep. So you'd think that it'll be interesting to see how they handle Charlie, another heart and soul player, and I think in the right structure, Dixon can actually be valuable because he always makes a contest. He's not going to be a high-scoring forward, but he always makes a contest. But whether they start playing Charlie further up the ground and playing Georgiadis and Marshall more as their focal points, I think eventually Georgiadis is going to be their focal point.
Really like him. He's classy.
Very much so. Very much so. I'm in agreement with you there, Mac. So
but just on that with Dixon and with Georgiadis, what they need to do is like what the Bulldogs have done, and also like what Melbourne have, is that you need those really good smaller mid-sized forwards at their feet.
Yep.
To bring them into the game.
Yeah,
that was supposed to be Fantasia.
That's right. He was.
But
nowhere.
he's he's always been hot and cold though.
Well, they brought him over on big bucks, despite his soft tissue injuries and all the rest of it. So you reap what you sow. Sometimes you win those, sometimes you lose them, and I don't think that they're. I think it's probably line ball at the moment, but he certainly hasn't performed when it was needed. Anyway, look. So Porter out, Geelong are out, and I guess now the question for Crows fans is, because none of us really like Luke Beveridge, let's be honest.
No,
bit of a tool. And none of us are fond of Jake Lever. So I guess allegiances could be split. I'm probably sitting on the Melbourne side of the fence because I don't really care about Jake, but I wouldn't mind seeing Goody get a flag. Would be the first ex-Crows player turned coach to win an AFL premiership, which wouldn't be.
I have an issue with that.
I know you do because you don't like Simon Goodwin.
No, it's not a personal thing. It's the fact that I don't think he should actually be coaching ethically because of what happened. I don't think anybody from that era at Essendon should be allowed anywhere near any players ever again.
I don't think Goodwin had anything to do with that, though.
Yeah, he did.
You keep saying that, Nicky. You keep saying that. What did
you
he
want
do?
to be? Hang on, before we go any, hang on. Before you go any further, I'm going to give you a minute, Nicky. But if you can't say something definitive, then please don't say it, because I don't have public liability insurance for this show. You cannot make definitive statements like, yes, he did, if you don't have facts to back it up. This is a show that goes on live everywhere and is available on the internet. I'm not going to get sued for a comment that isn't based in fact.
So where I am coming from in this respect is from a coaching point of view, and what I know as what I was trained in terms of the coaching system here in Australia and the regulations, etc., that we follow and everything else that we're supposed to do. He was part of that coaching group. I don't have those things in front of me right at the time, but remember, this is when the Crowcast started, was when all that was going on. I was reading every single thing that came out of that, including the stuff, the investigation from WADA and all the other things. He was involved.
There was no suggestion that he was involved. He was never fined. He was never charged.
Because they don't go after coaches. They can't actually get coaches.
They knocked off two coaches. They knocked off James Hird AFL, and Bomber Thompson.
The AFL did that, but under the WADA code, you can't. It's always on the athlete, because and you're right, because you can't prove that the coach was. But for me, it's as I said, it's an ethical issue that I have in terms of coaching, and that I don't think people who are part of that program, who allowed that program to go on, who partook in that program, because he has admitted that he was also injected with those drugs. That actually did come out. So he also partook in the program.
He was injected. My understanding was that he took the same thing that Jimmy Hird took. Not the stuff that they were giving the players. Anyway, that's a minute.
Yeah.
That's all.
So that's where I'm coming from.
That's all.
Well, I totally disagree with Nicky. I really like Goodwin as a coach, and whatever's happened in his life, well, that's his business. And I mean, everyone knows that he had a gambling addiction, and he's overcome that apparently. And he had the handicap of having somebody sit alongside of him, holding him back all the time, in my opinion. And now he's being his own man. His team has gone fantastically. He's an ex-Crows man. He's an ex-star. He's an ex-champion of our club. And I sort of fancy Melbourne for that reason, Fane. On the other hand, much as I really, really hate their coach, I have to respect that he is a very, very good coach, and I do admire the way the Bulldogs will always fight through, even under the worst circumstances. So I am a little bit split, but if I have to go for somebody, I'll go for Melbourne. And look, I do like the way they play too. They play a very good brand of football. So I'll go for Melbourne. Not saying that they will win, but that's who I'd like to win.
Yeah, I think if both teams come to the ground and play their best footy, it's going to be line ball, and it's going to be a very, very entertaining game of football because they're both hard at the contest. They both can score. They both have some excellent scoring focal points when they get going. Pardon me. The only other thing that probably sways me towards Melbourne, and someone in the chat there just reminded me of it, is wouldn't it be nice for Neil Danaher to see them win a flag while he's still with us? I think that'd be awesome.
I agree. I actually was going to make that point later, but look, yeah, I really do hope they win.
Yeah. So it's Nikki, you're on the Bulldogs train then?
I was always on the Bulldogs train because I do like the way they've played this year, and also I'm putting on my little former South Adelaide hat of I would really like to see Caleb Daniels get a premiership. I didn't get to see him do one for South Adelaide. I was watching those finals, and unfortunately he just missed out, but that was the year he was drafted, and he played excellently, so that's why I would like to see the Bulldogs win. But I agree with you guys. I think this actually should be an absolutely cracking grand final.
And the one thing I do love about it as well is the fact that I've read many times, and I'm sure you have in various places in social media, that how unfair it is for two Melbourne clubs not being able to play their grand final in Melbourne. Well, what do you think us guys have had to do all these bloody years, you idiots? So no sympathy for the Melbourneites whose football team will be playing in Perth and not in Melbourne. But in fact, I'm quite glad they are.
Yeah, it just shows that at the end they still think it's a Melbourne birthright, Victorian birthright. But anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole. All right, couple of quick things before we wind it up. Have we got anyone? Oh, we've got someone here that wants to have a chat. The Arab Child, we'll get you in, mate. Hopefully you've got your audio working this week. Come in, mate, when you're ready.
Hi guys, can you hear me this week?
Hey, how you going? Yeah, I don't know what was going on last week.
I don't know. No, something happened. Yeah, just going back to the Port thing and stuff. Their players are very arrogant, and that if somehow that the only thing that I don't want with Jason Horn, because he seems like he plays like Connor Rosie, and that is very worrying. Like I saw him in the under-18 games, I think it was, when they played against Western Australia. And I was like, yeah, that he doesn't seem like he's going to fit well in our culture, Adelaide's culture, football games and stuff. But I don't know, I was just wondering what you guys thought of his personality and attitude, other than him being a good player.
What do you think, Mac?
No, I'll let you go first, mate.
So you don't know. Maybe. I don't.
Spot, didn't I?
Well, no. Only because I don't know the lad personally.
I don't either. That's my problem. I don't.
He's a very good player. He plays with confidence. He's been playing against men for half a season now. I can't make a comment on him personally, so I just don't think. Yeah, I don't think I can make an objective call on that. I mean, it takes all kinds of personalities in a football club. You cannot control the personalities you have around the place. I remember when the Crows were successful back in the late 90s. Mods was out every night of the bloody week getting laid, and was king of Adelaide. And yet, he was still able to perform when it mattered. Malcolm Blight was very good at being able to handle different personalities and get the best out of everyone well documented how he used to G up Sean Wren, for example. So I hear what you're saying, but you'd like to think that the playing group would be strong enough and the culture would be strong enough that it would be more Jason being brought into line if he was a little bit ahead of himself. Not that I think it will happen, because I don't think Jason Horn's coming our way.
Well, he could. Maybe.
He could, but it's unlikely at this stage.
Yeah. I don't know. Why would not bid for him? I mean, if everyone's
we can't bid. About him. We can't bid for him.
He'll be gone before our bid comes up.
No, I mean
You mean trade for him?
Trade for him. Or just give up what the hell we need to.
Because
doesn't matter if we give up 2 or 3 first-round draft picks for him.
Well, we don't have 2 or 3, mate. We've only got 1 first-round draft pick, and I'm pretty sure that North Melbourne would still say, well, you know what, we like him too, so we're just going to take him at number 1.
No, I mean next year's and this year's as well. So both, and then give them up, because they're going to think we're not going to end up anywhere. And then they could have 2 top 10 picks, potentially 2 top 5 picks.
I don't mind where you're coming from, because if they really, really, really think that Jason Horn is the one that they want to get, then you make them an offer that's too good to refuse. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. I don't know, just thinking.
And one other thing which would complicate that situation is the Dawson situation, that if we are the preferred club by Dawson, then we may have to be trading picks anyhow. Because we certainly I don't think we have the players to offer.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric Child. Thanks, mate. I'm glad you were able to come on deck eventually. Yeah. Have a good one, mate. Anyone else wants to have a chat? Now would be the time. Just on Jordan Dawson, Macca and Nicky. So for those who don't know, Jordan's indicated that he doesn't want to continue in Sydney, that he wants to come back to South Australia. And he hasn't picked a club. He's left it up to Sydney at this stage. He hasn't named a club. So there's various whispers around about various things. I've heard that it's a bit 50-50 at the moment, whether it's Port Adelaide or the Crows. Pete and I had a little bit of a debate on Thursday night about what you'd give up. Matt, what's your feel?
Well, I was thinking about it. If I was Sydney, I would actually be demanding.
They don't get to demand. He's out of contract.
Well, sorry, that's true. With the Crows, I'll be saying, well, I'll trade our pick 12 for your pick 4, and I'll trade pick 31 for your pick 33.
So
and I would say
first and second round pick swap.
Yes, and I would say, well, look, we might do that, but throw in Stevens as well, and we might throw in a later pick as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's completely up to Dawson's decision, and there's too many rumors going around, as there always are when something like this happens. So even though a player has said often, I don't have a preference, etc., there often is a underlying preference already there anyhow. And some people are kind of saying in the chat of, but he was a Crow supporter. But that's lovely and nice, but so was Fantasia. If you get the better offer for your career, that's where you're going to go.
Yeah, but I think the issue with Fantasia was that by the time he was ready to come home, we'd lost interest, and he actually didn't get a competitive offer from the Crows in the end. I don't think he chose Port. I don't think he chose Port because they gave a better offer. I think he chose Port because there wasn't an offer coming from the Crows.
Yeah. So for his career, that's the one that was, that he went for in a way.
We didn't have a choice.
No, yeah.
He didn't have a frigging choice, Nicky. He only had one offer.
Yeah, because we lowballed him.
No, we didn't ball him at all. There was no ball.
Oh yeah. Yeah, completely. It was flat.
He was.
Wasn't fucked up at all.
It was a female offer, no ball whatsoever.
It's kind of interesting because there's also those rumours about Dylan Stevens. So
let's deal
I
with
think
Dawson
you kind
first.
of can't. To me, well, but that's the thing is anything you're going to discuss about that particular player, the fact that if you're going to be active and there's going to be other players involved or that you're interested in, you also need to know where those are at to see, so you don't give too much, maybe, at the start. Well, the fact that, if we could get 2 players out of Sydney, then yes, then you're definitely going to have to bring in a lot of those the first round picks and everything else, with what you're dealing with there. So to me, that's why I can't do or say anything too much on this yet, because I think there's still a way to go, and just to see how the lie of the land is going.
Yeah, look, I would be very disappointed if we didn't get Dawson to come to Adelaide. We've got a salary cap advantage. There's at least 2.5 million sitting there, and we should be able to, money wise, outbid for Dawson. And if Dawson is a thinking person, he looks at Port Adelaide side, he would find that if I was thinking about it, I would say, well, they've just about run their race, and maybe in a year or two, the big slide's on. The other team has done that, but they've already got about a 2-year start, and we should be playing finals there within 2 years, and then after that, we could be playing seriously in 3 years. So I think we've got a lot to sell. We've got money. He's certainly going to be one of our key players, and he could be probably in our leadership group immediately as well. So I think we've got a lot to offer. Having said that, Port Adelaide somehow seemed to do us, and I think that's because of the calibre of our people that we have in charge of our list. I've been critical of them many, many times, and they worry me because they tend to get done most of the time. But I think logically, if we play our cards correctly, we should be the winner.
Yeah, PJ Crow's saying in the chat, if people think a low first round is going to get it done, they're dreaming. Well, PJ, Sydney have got no choice. If Dawson accepts an offer from Adelaide, Sydney have to trade for him, because if they don't trade for him, then he will go in the PSD, and we're the first South Australian club in that draft. So we are holding a lot of cards in this, and I'm sure we will act decently. But this isn't this. I don't think the issue is being able to give Sydney what they want. The issue is being able to give Jordan what he wants. And as you rightly point out, Mako, we've got more than enough money. The sticking point will be if some flogs in the playing group arc up about us potentially overpaying a young lad to get him back from Sydney. And personally, I don't have a problem in hell paying Jordan overs to get him back. We've discussed this already. We need to do what we need to do to get these kids in. He'll be a valuable addition to the team. And to be honest with you, if we did it, forgetting the steak knives, Mac, if we did a 4 for 12 and Dawson, would still put us in the frame for maybe a Matty Roberts or an Arlo Draper at 12, I would imagine.
Exactly. That was my thoughts.
And if you said at the beginning of the draft period that you could end up with Draper and Dawson in terms of quality in the first round of the draft, you would absolutely take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding Jason Horn. So I really think that the Crows cut their losses on Jason Horn, and this is the next best strategy. And look, Port have only been into Jordan for the last few weeks or so. The Adelaide Crows have been into Jordan all season. So they had faith in him all season, and this has been a bit of a breakout year for him this year, but we preempted that. We've been at him to come home for a long time. So I would be bitterly disappointed, Macca, bitterly disappointed if we couldn't get the thing done. And I'm very confident, unlike some other pessimistic bastards, Pete and Vardy Magic,
Yeah.
I'm very confident that we'll get it done.
And interestingly enough, sorry, Nikki, but there's a couple in the chat who think that pick 23 would get him. Well, look,
23 won't get him.
23 is no hope of getting him. I watch every game every year. I watch every game every week, and Dawson this year has just risen, and he is an outstanding player, and he's on the threshold of greatness, in my opinion. And I think that if we got Dawson, yes, we're getting a very good player, but he's going to go to another level again, and he would add 3, 4, 5 goals to our team, no doubt about it. So, and I'm with Fiend, overpay him, and the other players don't like it, stiff shit. Just go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just...
Sorry, go, Nick.
I was actually quite impressed last year with how we handled out-of-contract players, and that we were not frightened for once to jump. That we actually held firm on what our offer was, and we knew that we had that in the bank about the preseason draft. You're absolutely spot on there, Fane, about that. So we do very much hold the power in this situation, but you're right, we've got to make that offer attractive to Jordan. And from what we understand, we've definitely got that money to do so. And they have kept saying that over and over again, so that we have to attract that bigger money. We have to do that in order to get them back into here. And I think that we've moved on a number of players who might have arced up. So fingers crossed.
Yeah. I think
it's going to go our way.
The players who've moved on, they're big salary players too. When you work out the dollars between it, that's big dollars. And on top of that, we're not playing Gibbs, and we're not playing Eddie, and we're not paying Jenkins. All of a sudden, we've got a clean salary cap, and we've got plenty of space, and it's reported to be $2.5 million. And we'll use some of it this year to try and get Dawson, and next year we'll try and get Lukosius Rankin, one of the two. And we're not going to debate between which one. So, I think we just do what we got to do.
Yep, 100%, Mac. I agree, and I maintain that a first-round pick swap with a little bit of pick shuffling down the road will get it done. I don't think Dylan Stephens will end up with us. And to be honest with you, as much as Dylan was a high draft pick, he's not at the same level, and would be paying for potential. So I'd be happy to pick up Dylan if he wanted to come back, but it would be the equivalent of a late second rounder for me, for Dylan Stephens.
I think that's all he's worth, mate. I know
as it stands at the moment.
He went to pick 5, but on his performances, he's been in and out of the side, and probably not given a lot of continuity, but then he hasn't justified the continuity. Yeah. That's the whole point.
Isaac Rankin went, top end of the draft, and you wouldn't pay a first rounder for Isaac Rankin at the moment.
No, so I wouldn't. I wouldn't pay a first rounder for him.
No, that's what I mean. And so their draft year pick is irrelevant once there's been some runs on the board, and we've seen Dylan have trouble for whatever reason getting into the Swans midfield. I think he's a good player, and Swans midfield is not easy to get into. He'd be secondary. Getting Jordan Dawson is primary, and I think we're in the box seat, and so hopefully we don't botch it up. And we've got a few weeks to wait on that, but it would be really nice if Jordan would come out next week and say, "Oh, look, now that Porter out of the race, I'm happy to say that I've nominated the Crows." And I'll leave it up to Sydney to make it happen.
Yeah, well, when you when you look at what a player is worth, you're quite right, Sven. You don't look at where he went in the draft situation. That players are like used cars. You like when you pay top of the range for a new car, and after it's been running around for a while, it might be only worth half the value. And players are exactly the same. So in Dawson's case, though, it's like buying a really old car, because he went at about 50 something, I think, thing. And you store it away, and it becomes a
bit of a
heritage
classic.
type vehicle. Yeah, and then you gain money. But with the top first round players, that doesn't mean very little once they've played a few games.
Yeah. Now, Nikki, the Cockwombling Numbnut of the Week award, which I'm sorry I didn't have time to prepare, but I'd like to make a nomination for John Ralph.
Oh God, what's he done now?
So I think it was Ralphie. I think it was Ralphie.
That could be permanent though with him.
Well, it could be the Cockwombling Ralphie.
And cane corns.
But hang on. So I think it was what's his name, Finey from SEN on his late night show has gone with Ben Keys is looking for a move back to Victoria, right? Yeah. And the giveaway to John. Hang on, hold your fire.
Okay.
And the giveaway for Finey should have been, or for Ralphie should have been that Finey said, "Oh yeah, his nickname's Bull." Clearly, Finey had gotten Ben Keys and Jake Kelly confused. But Johnny Ralph, the unemployed ex-sport quote-unquote journalist. Oh, it was Rowan Connolly, for God's sakes. Wasn't...
It was Rowan
Connolly. They're both the bloody same. I always get those two confused. Anyway, Rowan Connolly has gone on Twitter...
The other bloke.
Shut up, Macca, for God's sake. Ron Connolly has got on Twitter and run with Finey's story that Ben Keys, it was huge breaking news, Ben Keys was seeking a move back home to Victoria, and ran with it for nearly 24 hours before being kindly tapped on the shoulder and reminded that Jake Kelly is actually Bull, and he's actually going to Essendon, and Ben Keys is actually from Queensland and is not going anywhere and had to retract. So, Rowan Connolly, you idiot.
Yeah, I actually do like Rowan, but that's a bit stupid.
God, they're all the same. John Ralph, Rowan Connolly, they're all the bloody same. How can you get that wrong, Mac?
By trying to be first all the time. That's what they do. They try to be first, so they don't worry about the facts. And of course, once you check facts, and then so many times, what's that little fellow? That South Australian bloke that keeps on doing it. They always can't remember his name. But he's a little South
Sam
Australian
Edmund.
twit. Well, he's a classic. I mean,
he hasn't got one right.
Yeah, you can nearly go and say, well, if he said something that's going to be exactly the opposite. So, no, look, the media is pretty ornery at the moment. They just try to be first rather than right, and that was another classic example of it. And he's in his hurry, didn't even check that it was the right surname.
No. So. And as J-Mac says on the chat, I forgot to mention too, it was Benny Keys' brother that actually got on Twitter and said, yeah, you're sadly mistaken. Oh, fucking hell.
And the other question that keeps people out there keep asking is, how many draft picks do we have? We've currently got, we started the season with 36, 6, and 2. 36 on the main list, 6 on the rookie list, and 2 on the category B rookie. You can go, and you can fluctuate between 36-6 and 38-4 for between senior list and the rookie list. So at the moment, we do have 4 picks that we can use, but if we did, we'd be doing a 37-5 ratio with the 37 seniors, 5 on the rookie. If we delist Davis, then we would be able to do a 30, well, we could go 38-4 then.
You're determined to have this conversation, aren't you, Macca? You're determined to have this conversation. Every week I say wait until the draft and trade shows, And every week you keep trying to run through this.
No, people don't understand how it works.
I've been watching chat for the last 10 minutes. No one's asked.
No, I just thought I'd add it because just to let you know that actually at the moment we've got 4 picks. That's what we said.
We
That's what I wanted to
don't.
say.
We don't have 4 picks. We have 3 picks.
We've got 4 things. You can go 36-6, 37-5, 38-4.
Yes, but you don't. You don't. You can't reconfigure from the rookie list before the national draft.
We don't have to.
At the moment, we've got 3 spots available on our senior list. That's what we've got available. 3 spots.
That's correct. But
right. So that's what we will take to the draft.
But 2 off the rookie list means that we can go to 38 thing.
But you would have to pick them in the rookie draft, not the national draft.
Look, I know I'm right, Fane. I am. No, right.
I know. You're right, but you can't. You can't now, between now and the national draft, you can't drop players onto the rookie list. You can't do it.
You can, if you've got a rookie list of so many players and you've got a main list of so many players, you can think. You can go, if we got
there's a timing. It's not about numbers. It's about the rules and it's about timing. And I'll bring it up. All right. Well, let's leave this conversation because I read it the other day and I'll bring it up.
Well, I've read the rules too. And the rule is you can't transfer them to the rookie list.
That's right.
That's where you're getting confused. We don't have to transfer them to the rookie list. If you've got less rookies, you can have more on the main list. It's as simple as that. It's just simple mathematics.
But we only have a certain number of rookies. Like, put it this way, we've got Strawn and Butts both as third-year rookies, right? Now, one of them will have to get promoted to the senior list because otherwise we're going to be stuck next year when they change the rule back. Because it's only because they've extended it for another year this year that we've got the opportunity to keep both those blokes on for 4 years. But one of them is going to have to come up because otherwise we're going to have to be moving them both up next year, which is going to be an absolute list squeeze. So you've got a situation where even if they want to reconfigure to 37.5 instead of 36.6, which we've currently got at the moment, we're still going to only end up taking 3 picks to the national draft. 3 spots to the national draft.
They don't have to, but you can still pay them as a senior player on the rookie list and you still get some salary relief.
Yes, but you can't draft them straight onto the rookie list.
No, but they're already there, Fee. They're there. Butch is already there. He's on the rookie list. Keys is on the rookie list.
You misunderstand what I'm saying. Next year, they have to come off the rookie list because you can only keep players on the rookie list for a certain amount of time, right? And it's always been 3 years, but this year they've extended it, so it's an extra year. It's 4 years. They've let them go for 4 years. But if we keep Butts and Strawn on the rookie list for both of them for another year, then it's going to absolutely squeeze us next year. So logic tells you that one of those 2 is going to have to come up to the senior list so that we don't have to transfer them both onto the senior list next season, right?
That's a different situation.
I just said that a minute ago. That's exactly what I've just repeated myself.
Yeah, I know you're repeating yourself, but what I'm saying is that unless we promote those players, if the players stay exactly where they are now on each particular list, we have 4 draft picks. Factual.
How many players we got on the senior list at the moment?
On the senior list,
yeah.
we had 30. We had 36, and we removed 3.
Who have we removed?
Sorry?
Who did we remove?
Well, we removed Talion.
Yeah.
And Lynch.
Yeah.
And Kelly.
Well, Kelly will be, but we'll get a compensation pick back for him. Not that changes anything. So
but that's not a player.
Yeah. So that'll be 3 off, which leaves 3 picks. And what you're saying is, so go on. But we can choose to go 37.5. That's what you're saying, right? Instead of 36.6.
Yeah, or we could go to 38.4.
Yeah. 38's the maximum on the senior list, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. So, hang on, I'm just trying to work through this with you so that I understand. So the Cat Bs don't count in that equation, do they?
No, I checked on that. They don't count.
So Borlace and Newchurch don't count?
No, they don't.
And how many rookies have we got at the moment? 5. Or is it 4?
So let me think.
We've got Davis, we've got Strawn, we've got Butts.
McKay's gone off.
Keys.
Yeah, no, we'd have to get rid of one. Yeah, we'd have to get rid of one of O'Connor or Davis.
So we've got 5 at the moment.
Yeah, and that gives you a 37.5 ratio.
Yeah, so if they choose to go 37.5,
we've got 4 picks.
Then we've got 4 picks. If they choose to do what they've done every other year and remain 36.6, then we've got 3 picks.
Correct.
Yeah. And I understand what you're saying about blokes on the rookie list can still be paid whatever they want. They just get, what is it? Is it 80 or 120 that they get rebated?
Well, I've read 2 figures. It used to be 80, but I think somebody said it was quoting it as 100 because I've been doing a lot of research on this, and it used to be 80. I'm still working on the 80 figure because the guy that quoted the 100, I'm not sure whether he knew what he was talking about or not. But that's the reason why they allowed teams to transfer 2 players off the senior list onto the rookie list to get that 80,000 rebate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bloody stupid. Why don't they just make one list and adjust the TPP accordingly? It's bloody stupid.
And a rookie now gets 85,000.
Yeah, but that's the base. So that's what's rebated because the 85,000 is what's not counted towards TPP.
Yeah, but you can still play a rookie as just as much as you like.
Morris saying 7 rookies currently. I count Davis.
No, they're counting the 2 category Bs in, but they don't.
Oh yeah, okay. No, they don't come into this.
Yeah, they definitely don't.
Category Bs are outside. I know that, babe.
Yeah. So at this stage, unless we promote players from the rookie list onto the senior list, we've got 4. Never tear us apart. It's good. Look, it's good debate, and so it'll be interesting to see. Personally, I can't see why we would keep Davis. Not that he didn't perform too badly when he got a couple of games at the end of the year, but he's been there 5 years, and we've got other young players in defence that are coming up that I think we should be playing there.
No, Morris is right. Parnell and Murray. I knew it. Fucking knew it, Macca. Butts, Keys, Hinge, Murphy, Davis, Parnell, and Murray.
Well, we only had 6 in the first place, mate. So
Butts, Keys, Hinge.
We were 36.
I don't think Murphy's a rookie.
Murphy's not a rookie.
No, but Murray is.
No, I think
Murray is.
I'm not sure without looking at the paper.
Look,
but I know
no.
Got 5.
Enough. Stop.
Only got 5 at this.
Macca, that's why I said to you last week, don't talk about the fucking draft until we're ready, because this is like we've just wasted 10 minutes.
I don't think so.
Yeah, we did.
No, that's because he wants to talk about it, so that's why we haven't wasted it.
No, I just don't think most people understand how it works.
Yeah, but we're not ready to talk about it yet, Macca.
All right, I'll be quiet.
Thanks. Right. Talk about formatting. People, please donate to aflcrowcast.com, or what is it, patreon.com/AFLcrowcast, just to, as a donation for me having to put up with these two people that don't understand format. Look, we'll call it quits there, because. Yeah.
But look, the fun thing is when this happens is I just go quiet and I just love reading the chat because you guys are just as funny as the debate that is going on, quite seriously.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, next week I think we better have a week off because the footy's having a week off, so we might have a week off too, I reckon.
Sounds like a good plan.
Peter and I will be back on Tuesday night for Tuesday Night Live, and we'll talk a little bit more about things in general. That should be a bit short and sharp, that one. And then we will do Tuesday Night Live again on Grand Final week, and then we will obviously have the wrap to wrap up the Grand Final in a fortnight's time. And then, Macca, after that, you'll be pleased to know that we'll be heading into the trade and draft period of the season, and your learned knowledge will be well received at that point. In the meantime, thanks everyone for joining us on Discord. Thanks everyone on YouTube for joining us as well. And be safe, and we'll see some of you on Tuesday night and the rest of you in a fortnight. Till then, see you later.
Yeah.
Night all.
See ya.